Hey there, if we haven't met, I'm Viv. This is Art with Viv, and this month in my Patreon group, we are doing a Back to Basics month. So each week of the month, I'm going over just some basic things to get everybody on the same page with 4 different mediums or types of things. Last week was Pastel Perfection. This week is The Wonders of Watercolor. I don't know where I come up with these names. And then The Goodness of Gouache will be next week. And at the end of the month, we'll be going over some bullet journaling and just some basic tips about getting started with your bullet journal. But for today, we're going to go over watercolor supplies. Now, I am not going to go over every single supply that there is out there. I'm going to get down and dirty with it. We just going to go for exactly what you need to start off with. I'm going to give you the essential information that you need to pick out your supplies. And that's it, because you don't have time to be messing around. I've already done the work for you. I have tried out all these things. So if I'm recommending it, it's actually something that I have tried and I know will work for you. So I've just got, we're going to keep it simple. Keep it simple. So let's get started. And the first thing we're going to start off with is watercolor paper. So come on, let's go to the studio. First thing we want to talk about is paper and how it comes. Now you can get pads where it's just connected on one end, pads of watercolor paper. You can get blocks of watercolor paper, and blocks are attached on all 4 sides. It keeps you from having to stretch it. Stretching it can be a pain in the butt. I never stretch my paper. I usually use a block, and if I don't, I just tape it to a backer board, and I don't use a lot of water. And then this one has like the corner is loose. Let me show you. The corner is loose so that you can pull your paper off once you're finished with it. So that is a pad and a block, and then they come in single sheets. Now these are smaller. These are pre-cut sheets, and they're smaller than, the normal sheets you would buy. But these I bought pre-cut. I like those. You can get them in a pack. You can get them in a mixed pack of different surfaces, different weights. So that's really good if you want to just try something out. And I'll link that in my description. So you'll have all this information in the description, so don't worry. So you'll want 100% cotton, and you will want archival quality or acid free. That will mean that your paper will not deteriorate over time. It won't turn yellow, and you'll see right here this says acid free. So this is a really good paper, and this is my block. This is Fabriano Acquarello Artistico is what I use almost all the time. That and Arches. But, I don't mind paying a little bit of extra. But like I said, if you don't have the budget, you can get the Strathmore series. And the difference is the Strathmore series usually has wood pulp in it. And wood pulp is not acid free. It's not archival quality. So if you do find one, though, when you're looking for a paper and it says wood pulp, see if you can find one that says pH neutral. That will help it last longer. That'll help keep it from deteriorating. And that's why I say don't use these types to sell your work, work that you're going to sell, because it could deteriorate over time. And you don't want to sell your work and then the customer, over time, they lose their painting after they've paid for it. But you can find this that is a combination of cotton fibers and wood pulp. Again, just make sure that it is either archival, acid-free, or pH neutral if it has the wood pulp in it. So that's what you look for in your paper. You want, for the best quality paper, you want 100% cotton, acid-free. So, or archival quality. That's what you want as far as the quality of the paper. You can go ahead with the wood that has wood pulp in it, but look for pH neutral. So the next thing I want to talk about is the weight of the paper. And the weight of the paper is important. If you get 90-pound watercolor paper, it's going to be flimsy. I do not recommend it for beginners because it buckles too easily. The next up is 140-pound cold press, or any kind of pressed paper. We'll get to the surfaces, but 140-pound paper is the most commonly used. It's the easiest and most economical. And then there is 300-pound paper. This is really thick, usually more expensive, but it holds up to washes really well. It holds up to scrubbing really well. It does not have to be stretched. You can paint directly on 300-pound paper. So it has a lot of upsides, but the downside is it is very pricey. Then the next thing you want to figure out is the type of surface of the paper. Now you have cold pressed. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see if I can get it. Cold pressed is rough and bumpy. It takes washes well, and it is usually what most watercolor artists use is 140-pound cold pressed. Then you have hot pressed, and all that means is those cotton fibers have been really compressed tightly so that the paper is smooth. It's really great for highly detailed work, and the downside is it doesn't hold up to scrubbing as good, but it is good for fine detail work because that watercolor has a tendency to sit right on the top. It's easier to lift watercolor off of the paper if you make a mistake with the hot press, unless it is a staining watercolor. And then you have rough. Now rough is really pitted. I want to say pitted. It has a lot of texture. It doesn't do well with fine details. It's better if you're doing like dry brush or you really just want to incorporate that texture into it. I don't recommend it for beginners, but hey, if it is something you would like to try it out. So we got that all. So here are my recommendations. If you can afford it, get a watercolor block. You won't have to stretch your paper, and get a 140-pound cold press acid free. If your budget is tight, get the Strathmore series. They do have one that comes in a blend of cotton fibers and wood pulp. Just make sure it's pH neutral. And this is still a good paper. It's a really good paper. Again, I still say 140-pound cold press. That is what I would suggest for any beginner. Or if you want to just do single sheets, you can get these packs of mixed types of paper, mixed surfaces, mixed weights. If you want to try out a bunch of papers and they are already pre-cut, I will link those below too. But they are, for what you get, I think they're a little bit pricey, but they're not like over the top. So there we go. That is our watercolor paper. The next up, we're going to talk about brushes. So let's talk about brushes. Now what you want in a brush, you'll want to make sure that it has a good full fluffy tuft, comes to a good point. You want to make sure that it is in there, you know, the handle is in the ferrule. It's not wiggly. We don't want any wiggliness. And you want a seamless ferrule. You don't want a line where the ferrule is crimped around and together. You want it to be just like this, seamless all the way around. That is the main thing. You want to make sure that when you paint with it, it releases the paint smoothly. It holds a lot of paint. It will snap back, and it has a little spring to it. Those are some of the basic things you want to look at. You also want to make sure that it comes back to a good point or a good edge, depending on what shape it is. Watercolor brushes come in so many different shapes, but we're not going to go over every shape. If you just get one watercolor brush, get a pointed round, and usually I like to get a size 8. This one's a size 8, pointed round. Now let's talk about cost. They come in a plethora of price ranges. Now this is a set, and it is by Royal and Langnickel Majestic Deluxe set of watercolor brushes. This is a really good set. I'm going to send this one to my friend Debbie. I just haven't packed it up. I've been going to send it to her for a year and still haven't gotten it to her. But as you can see, I haven't used it much. It has a little bit of staining on it. But I'm going to give that to her because I think that with the larger handles, it might work for her better. Now, this 5-piece set is $11.65 on Amazon. So that's a pretty reasonable price for a set of, well, you get a set of 5, but for some reason I only have 4 here. I don't know where my other one is. But this comes in a set of 5. I've only got 4 represented here. The other option is you can get a Try Me set of the Creative Mark Mimic Faux Squirrel brushes. I love these for beginners. One thing you do have to watch out for, they do hold a lot of water, so you'll have to get used to that. Mr. Darcy chewed this one up. I'm going to have to get a pencil holder or something to put it in because he chewed my handle off of that one. But you can get a set of 5 for $14.99, and I think that comes with, you'll get a flat brush and you'll get all these little round brushes with that. That's a set of 5 for $14.99, so it's a little more expensive than these. It's just like a little bit up. Or if you really have the budget, you can get a set of 8 and you'll get a script liner, a wash brush, and a big round size 30 round brush. So if you've got the budget, you can get 8 of these for $58.39 on Amazon. But they also have a Try Me pack of 5 for $14.99. So that's the one, if you're a beginner with a low budget, that's the one I would go for. Now these are my all-time favorite. These are the Silver Black Velvet 3000 Series S series. Notice I don't have a set of them because this one at a size 8 is $23.75 all by itself. You can get these in sets, but the sets are a little bit expensive for what you get, I think. They do have one that's like $58 or $60 that you get a set of script brushes, which this is a script brush. It just has a long tuft on it, so you can do like branches, long thin lines. That's what a script brush is for. And this one, the size 1, is like this one, the script brush is $18.89 or something like that on Amazon. And then I have a size 1 brush this is a size 2 that's $13.83 or something like that. So I buy these individually, and that's why I only have 3 of them. And this is what I use most of the time when you see me painting on my YouTube channel. These are my favorite brushes, but like I said, they are a little bit expensive. But if you have the budget, you can buy them one at a time, or you can buy a set that's a little bit more pricey. I'm buying mine one at a time, just buying what I need. Now, as far as a beginner, if you can only afford one brush, I would get a size 8 pointed round. If you can afford more than one brush, get a 1-inch flat. If you got even more of a budget, just get the whole set of these for $59 and you get everything. I mean, you get everything just about. As far as anything you would need, you'll get your flat brushes, your wash brushes, your pointed round, your script brush, your smaller, tinier detail brush, although it will actually have a handle on it, but like I said, my dog chewed that up. I dropped it on the floor. So you can go for that. But flat brushes are good for nice wide washes. Anytime you want to do a geometric type stroke. Round brushes are the workhorse. You can get into small spots, you can get into big spots with them. You can do washes, although they're not as what am I going to say? They're not as, I want to say economical, but that's not the right word I'm looking for. They're not as good for doing washes, but you can make it work. You can make it work. The other brush I recommend you get is this is a little stiff bristled hog bristle brush, and this is so you can scrub up mistakes. So if I was to start off and I had an okay budget, I would get a tiny scrubber brush, I would get a 1-inch flat, and I would get a size 8 round. That's what I would start off with, and then I would add to it. Now it doesn't have to be these brands, it just has to be a round, a flat, and a scrubber. Now if you're going to work really large, then yes, the wash brushes come in handy. Alright, so let's talk about watercolor paint. Now watercolor paint comes in different ways. You can get it in the tube and go ahead and put it in your own little pans. You can get it already in the pans. They're like little dry cakes of watercolor already wrapped up in the pan, or you can get it in sets. And that is these. I wanted to show you these sets. Now you have this set, which is a student grade, and then we have these are all professional grade, and this is professional grade as well, this Daniel Smith. So let me go over that. Student grade, all it means is it has less pigment and more fillers and more binder in the mixture, the way that it's manufactured. Professional paints have much more of the pure pigment and much less of the binder and the fillers. Student grade, less expensive. Professional can be very expensive. So that is the main differences, is just the amount of pigment that they have and their price point. Also, student grades paints might not be light fast. You'll want to read up on them, read up on the pigments that come with them. They might not be light fast, which means they will fade over time, or if sometimes people call that fugitive. So you want to know that if you paint one with student grade, which is what this one is, a student grade, then it may not stand up to the test of time, so you might not want to use it for work that you want to sell or keep forever. Again, professional grade, much better. It's light fast, more pigment, less binder, and it will hold up to the test of time. Now, this is the student grade. If you got a low budget, I would suggest this one. I love this. You can see I've used the heck out of it. I really love this little set, especially for practicing. It comes with its own little brush, right? You know, it has its own brush. Of course, I used my other brushes, but it's nice to have one so you can take it for traveling. Get in there and act right. It comes with a cool and a warm yellow, a cool and a warm red, a warm and a cool, a warm and a cool blue, but it also has two greens, a yellow ochre, a sienna, and then a dark brown and a white, which this is just gouache. Watercolor doesn't normally come in white. This is just a little cake of gouache, but you can mix any color that you would ever need. You can mix from this set right here, unless you want something that has the exotic other kinds of synthetic pigments. But for anything color, basic colors that you will ever need, you can mix it. And this is the Winsor & Newton Cotman Sketchers box. It comes with, it's already in this nice little palette, has a place to mix, has a nice little brush with it, and it is $21.52 for 13 pieces and a brush and a palette. That's on Amazon. That is student grade. I highly recommend this if you're not sure if you're going to stick with watercolor and you just want to try it out just to begin with. That's the one I would pick. The next up that comes in this little set. Now these are professional watercolors. This is Daniel Smith Extra Fine watercolors. It is an essential set. You also get a cool yellow, a warm yellow, a cool red and a warm red, a cool green and a cool blue and a warm blue. You can mix almost every color that you ever want. You could supplement this with a sap green and maybe a sienna brown, maybe an umber, burnt umber. So you might want to add 3 more to this, but you really don't have to because you can mix every color you need with these 6 colors. So that is the Daniel Smith Professional Grade Watercolor Essential Sets, and it comes in at $37.59. Keep in mind though, for $37.59, you may have to add maybe a sap green or some earth tones like sienna or burnt umber, but it's still a good value. That is my next recommendation if you have a little bit more of a budget and you don't mind, adding a few colors. This one for beginners that aren't sure that they're going to stick with it, it's great value right there. These are professional. They are still affordable, I think, and they will, be a great range. They will let you mix any color you want. Next up, I have now these are just different brands. You can buy them by the single tube. They start out anywhere like $8 up to 20 something dollars for the tube, depending on the pigment that's used in them. This is just a little pan. I wanted to show you what a pan of watercolor looked like. You can also buy these empty and fill them up with your own paint. But this is a Winsor Newton, and it's the professional grade. It's not the Cotman. Cotman is their student grade for Winsor & Newton. Anytime you see Cotman, you'll know that that is a student grade product from Winsor & Newton. We got Winsor & Newton Professional, and then I have Daniel Smith Extra Fine, which I've already have over there, but these I bought individually. And then M. Graham, I love, love, love. It has a honey binder in it, and they are just smooth. I love working with M. Graham. But you can buy these individually, and if you were to do that, though, it'd be a lot more expensive than these, because these start at like $7. Some of them start at $7, but it depends on the pigment. Maybe $8 up to $14, $15. Some of them are even higher than that. So this would be your best bet if you want professional watercolors. You want to get the essential colors that you need to start off with, and then you can add single colors as you go. Now, another important thing you'll want to know is how to look at the actual tube of paint. So that top ring right at the top, that is the color swatch. It's the visual representation of the paint color. And then the manufacturer, that's the company that made it. And this particular one is M. Graham. And then the color name, this is Cobalt Teal on the example I'm showing you. And then the price group, it will say Series 5. So price groups are called series, and the series will be followed by a number. The higher the number, the higher the price. For example, a Series 3 would cost more than a Series 1. So that's something to keep in mind. So the next thing you want to look at is the back of your watercolor tubes. And the first thing is the light fast rating. You'll want to know if it's going to hold up, if it's going to be a permanent color. And light fast just means it's the ability to resist fading. It's rated 1 through 5. A rating of 1 is the very best for light fastness. And then, of course, 5 means it may fade over time, or it could be fugitive is another word for that. It gives the health warning if it cautions against any ingredients that may cause harm to your health. So pay attention to if it has that on there. Pigment name and number, and that just represents the pigment family and actual pigment that is in this tube of paint that they use to make this tube of paint. And this one is PB28. So that is the pigment number. Then you'll have the ASTM conformance, and that's just a standard practice for labeling art materials for health hazards. All right, now here is a smart tip I wanted to give you. If you have two similar colors from two different manufacturers, you want to check the pigment name and number and see if they're made from the same pigment and can be interchangeable. So even if it has a different name, like they named their color something different, this one's Cobalt Teal, but maybe it'll say Cobalt Turquoise on a different manufacturer's. You don't have to pay attention to the names. Look on the back and check out that pigment name and number, the pigment initial and number. If they are the same, they are interchangeable. And you also want to look for watercolors that have just two pigments in them. You don't want to have more than two pigments. They can get a little muddy. Just be cautious of that. So let's just go ahead and recap that. We have student grade. Student grade has less pigment, more fillers, might not be light fast, which means it could fade over time. We have professional, has much more pigment to binder ratio, is generally light fast, and will stand the test of time without fading. A good pack, a good starter pack would be this Watercolor Essential Set by Daniel Smith. It's only $37.59 on Amazon. I'll link that. If you want to buy individual watercolors, then you can do that as well, but it's going to be a lot more expensive to buy the individual tubes of paint. You can also buy cakes or pans. Those are a little less expensive. You can get half pans and full pans. And half pans, of course, would be cheaper. If you do get this set, I would supplement it with a sap green, and I would also get maybe a yellow ochre, or I would get some burnt sienna or some burnt umber, some kind of an earth tone to go with that. So there you go. Those are your watercolors. That is the basic things that you need to think about, and that's it. So I hope that just answers some of your questions. Remember, if you're part of my Patreon, one of my patrons, then you will get the PDF downloads that has all the information written out for you, and it'll have a little bit more than what we went over in this video. And that's because, you know, I try to give my patrons, the ones that actually support me monetarily, I try to give them my best of my best so that they have everything that they need to get started. I would love for you to be part of my patron family. Even my free members get some stuff too. I know a lot, I've seen a lot of people that have Patreons and they don't really give their free members anything, but I try to give my free members things too. I don't go as deep as a dive with my free members, but now my dabblers, my $5 a month and above, they get so much stuff. So you might want to check that out. And Wednesday, we're going to go over basic techniques. And Friday, we are going to do a live tutorial. And it's going to be something simple that you can get a quick win, and it will be perfection when you finish. You will not be able to mess it up, hopefully. All right, I will see you later. And don't get stressed out. Be good to yourself. You got this. Art is fun. It is not supposed to be stressful. Okay. See y'all next time.